Continuing on with the CT70 1970 build. In the last video we finished up a lot of the controls, the headlight bucket and the tachometer, and also the speedometer cable gearing for the front wheel. But in this new order I've got the clutch cable, which I thought I would have had in the 4-pack cable set that I bought from CHP, but it instead came with a rear brake cable, which I don't need, and honestly I'm not sure if I even have room for in the H model, although there is this this mechanism here that looks like it's designed to hold the rear brake cable. But regardless, I'm a fan of just using the rear foot brake and the right handle for the front brake like a regular motorcycle. And since this is going to be clutched, I like having this one set up like a real bike. So I've got the clutch cable. That should be pretty simple install. And I've got these fenders on the 1970 bike. I use these reproduction fenders that I bought from Dr. CT70 off of eBay. The quality is pretty good. The finish isn't perfect though, and honestly I imagine if I spent too much time outside with them and exposed to the elements that it would probably rust relatively easily. But they look fine for this bike. I figured though on this bike, since I don't seem to be sparing too many expenses, I might as well get the original. It's pretty impressive to me that Honda is still making, or at least still has, these OEM front and rear fenders. But these obviously will be as good looking as they're gonna get. So anyway, we'll get those all unwrapped and on the bike here in just a minute. And then one of the other items that I ordered is this bracket that supports the, or protects rather, the engine. CHP said that they remanufactured these just like they did with these bars. So if the quality is anywhere as close to how good as the bars came out, I'm sure that I'm going to be impressed. But just looking at here, the chrome looks really good. So gonna get this on, and then I think there's a couple of other odds and ends. This is a seat bracket. I'm not sure why it's silver. And then this was the headlight switch for high beam, low beam, and the horn button that go in these two holes here on the handlebars. So gonna get all of these on the bike and be one step closer to having this thing done. So a couple of things about, here's the front fender I was going to put on. The quality is amazing. It looks completely different than the remanufactured fender that I put on the 76 bike. It looks fantastic. I did notice though here on the inside that along these edges here there's a little bit of rusting. I'm not too worried about it, but it's a shame that since it's supposed to be a brand new product. So I was thinking maybe it's just been in storage for a while, but there's like a little piece of newspaper that was stuck here. And one of the things, so it's from a Japanese, or it's in Japanese at least, and there's something that says 2018. Piece of newspaper was stuck in here. I don't know if that means maybe it was wrapped more recently and it's actually new old stock, or if these are still being produced, which I'd be pretty surprised if they were. But it looks great. I'll open up the other fender and see if I have the same rusting problem. I think I'm actually just going to scrub this down and maybe put some light touch-up paint around those edges just so that it doesn't continue to rust. So I don't have all the bolts tightened down yet, but the piece fits really well. And the quality of the chrome job is pretty impressive. So I like the look of all the chrome that the bike starts to have at this point. I'm not sure which exhaust system I'm going to go with on this build though. If I do OEM, I seem to remember that the life and motor comes out a little bit further, so I don't know if I'll have trouble getting it to fit through the bracket, as well as lining up with the mount on the rear right shock. But we'll see. I was also looking at a couple of aftermarket exhaust systems that I thought looked pretty neat. Here's a look of the bracket underneath the bike. The drain plug hole lines up well enough that you can do an oil change with it on. And I can't remember actually if this is supposed to go underneath the kickstand bracket or not, but since I'm going to have to take it off probably once I put on the exhaust, I figured I'll just put it on like this for now, since it meant I didn't have to take the whole kickstand assembly off to make it fit. Okay, so I got both of the fenders on, but not without a bit of issue. The front fender went on just fine. I had to use I realized that I had to get the horn mount, which is what mates up to the other side of the fender and holds the two bolts. So I actually had this bracket from the 1976 bike. I didn't need it for that because I used that that aftermarket front fork that had a different assembly that came with nuts built into the fork. So I had that. I just need to figure out then the horn situation. I do have the 6-volt horn from the 76 bike, but I'm going to make this a 12-volt bike, so I'll find a 12-volt horn and find a way to attach it to this mount. That should be pretty easy. But the way that the fender hooks up, it's just two of the bolts right here, which were nice and simple. And the quality of this fender is amazing, particularly compared to the reproduction fender that I had on the 76 bike. But this is the OEM fender for the bike, and it looks fantastic. So I have the rear fender hooked onto. This is the one that gave me a bit of trouble. There's two bolts here in the back of the, or towards the front of the bike, and then two more, let's see here, towards the rear. These two in the front are just holes that don't have much play, and then the two in the back have a little play to go back and forth, but I was just a bit short, and they needed a little more play for it to fit on this particular frame. I don't know if that just had to do with variations in the years of the frame or what. I know the frame itself is pretty straight, and this is a new fender, so I'm not sure why I had to make that adjustment, but I just did a bit of filing. I took off probably less than half of a centimeter using a round file just to make the oval a little bit longer so that it would fit on. But now that's situated, all of the hardware is stainless steel. And then for the holes that I did elongate a bit, where I probably took off the chrome, I used just a little bit of touch-up paint. I have some silver touch-up paint from the Silver Forerunner that should help prevent rust. So that's all that I'm going to bother finishing today. I'm actually headed to Cabo San Lucas for the week. I took about a 2-week break, but I'm back to finish now the fender install, the engine guard. Those two, I think, are the parts that we did finish before I went on vacation. And then the clutch cable, which I have here from CHP Motorsports. And then the horn button and the high-low button for the integrated holes here on the handlebars. So as I look at how these things mount, it looks like it goes through the hole on the handlebars, and then there's a screw that goes through the other side. It's like that for both of these controls. So what I realize I need to do, since the hole is up here, the screw hole comes through on this side, and it looks like I'll need to remove the brake and clutch levers to be able to get it to the other side. So before I install the clutch lever on this side of the bike, I'm going to go ahead and pull off these levers so that I can get those screws installed, and then I'll put this brake lever back on, and then we'll get the clutch cable on. So that was a lot easier said than done, but I was able to fish the wire for the horn button through the hole here, and then through the hole shared down here with the front brake cable and the horn button. I just need to pass them both through now this grommet and get back in place here. And then I should be able to get this horn button through this hole and the screw secured on the other side, since I took out the screw holding the brake lever here, so that I can access the hole here. Let's see if we can see through the camera. I'm not sure if that's showing or not, but there's a hole there to secure the horn button on the other side of the handlebar. I ended up removing the brake lever altogether because I needed more space than I thought to get the screwdriver in there. But here you can see the screw on the other side that's holding the horn button that came in from this side. That's in flush and looks like it's working well. I just need to add the grommet here, and then the right side controls after I put the brake handle back on should be complete. After quite a bit of struggling, I got the lower grommet back in now, so the horn button wire and the throttle cable are both running inside of the top part of the right handlebar, coming out of the grommet, this part of the handlebar. And then I also ordered these OEM Honda tie wraps that are now holding the cables here as they come down into the rest of the bike. So just to do the same thing on the left side now to get the clutch cable installed for this lever, as well as the high-low beam wire routed through the bike the same way that the horn button was. Okay, controls are complete. I have the high-low switch installed here on the left handlebar. The way that it works is a grommet down here that the wire comes out of the switch into the handlebar, through the handlebar, and then down out through the grommet right here. Then for the clutch cable, much like the brake cable, bring it back to this side. It has this little nub here that recesses into the handle, the lever perch that's connected directly to the handlebar, just like the brake side is. But that cable comes out, runs down through the bike, or rather along the side of the bike. I tucked it underneath the engine guard here. I don't know if I'm supposed to do that or not. We'll see how it works. Then down here to the life and motor. It has the way that the cable is set up. I assume this is the same way that the perch was on the original HK0 bike, because it fits perfectly into the way that this cable is shaped to support. And as you pull the clutch cable up here, it pulls the clutch in and out. So controls are now finished on the bike. Fenders are done, and most of the exterior of the bike is finished. The remaining things, and actually I have a package, so a new video will be coming soon. I've got the fuel tank, the fuel lines, fuel filters, the mount that covers the fuel tank and then connects to the seat, as well as the wiring harness. So that's the last main thing. A lot of the controls that we installed here just have the wires that are hanging out ready to be installed into the wiring harness that meets up all in the front headlight bucket here. So we'll get the wiring harness in and the fuel tank assembly in, and at that point we can start the bike. The only remaining things at that point will be taillight assembly, the taillight assembly bracket, the seat, and the exhaust. And then there's going to be a few odds and ends, but otherwise this bike is getting pretty close to firing up. Thanks for watching.